based solely on the judge's discretion. It's completely up to the judge whether the judge thinks the case should go to an adult court for criminal prosecution or if the case should stay in the juvenile court. When a juvenile is charged with murder in the juvenile court, there are a number of different things that the child and the family can expect to happen. First, initially, probably the first thing that's going to happen is that the child is going to be taken into detention and held at the detention center. When a child is taken into detention, they must have their first detention hearing in front of the juvenile judge within 48 hours of arriving at the detention center. That's going to be the first time the judge hears about the accusations and hears about why the kid is in the detention center in the first place. At that initial detention hearing, the judge is only going to make one decision. And that decision is whether that child is going to stay in detention or be released that day. At those future detention hearings, the judge is only going to be deciding again whether the child will go home pending the rest of the procedure or if the child will remain in detention hearing for at least another 10 business days until the next detention hearing. Separate and apart from the detention hearing, the case will be forwarded to the district attorney's office for review. The district attorney's office will make a decision about, number one, what charges, if any, to file, and number two, what sort of proceedings they want to pursue. When we're talking about what charges they want to file, murder can be charged in a number of different ways. It can be charged as murder like we always think of it, intentionally or knowingly, meaning a person killed another person on purpose. It was their intent and they were successful in that intent. There are other ways murder can be charged. Manslaughter can be something like reckless, or there's intoxication manslaughter, meaning a person was intoxicated and caused a car accident where another person died. Basically, the district attorney's office will be reviewing all the evidence and they'll decide if they want to file murder charges and what they want that language to read. They can also file murder charges alleging different things. If we get a petition on a murder charge, there may be more than one allegation for the same murder because the district attorney's office might want to give themselves options by alleging different scenarios that they believe might have been possible. That's okay. If there's a petition where only one person died, but there's multiple allegations of murder, the district attorney's office would only be able to proceed on one or have an adjudication on one of those, not all of them. The second decision the district attorney's office is going to make is what proceedings they want to pursue. The first way a juvenile case can proceed is kind of what I think of as like the traditional juvenile route. In that route, the case stays in the juvenile court and the punishment only remains in the juvenile system. What I mean by that is the juvenile judge would be the only judge to hear the case, the juvenile court would be the only place the case is heard, and the only potential disposition options would be within the juvenile department. What that means is that the child could get probation up until their 18th birthday, or if the child is sentenced to a term in the juvenile prison, TJJD, they could only remain in TJJD for as long as their 19th birthday. That's the traditional juvenile route. The second route we often think of is what I like to call adult certification. It's something that we're usually kind of familiar with, but what that means is that the district attorney's office is asking the juvenile judge to give up juvenile jurisdiction of the case and send the entire case to the adult court for prosecution. That's something that the district attorney's office has to ask the judge to do, and the judge will make that decision after hearing evidence from the district attorney's office about why they think the adult court is the appropriate place for this case to proceed. And the defense, we have an opportunity to present reasons why we think the case should remain in the juvenile court, if that's what we believe. After that hearing, the judge will make the decision based solely on the judge's discretion. It's completely up to the judge whether the judge thinks the case should go to an adult court for criminal prosecution or if the case should stay in the juvenile court. If the case stays in the juvenile court, then we just resume proceedings like normal. If the judge transfers the case to the adult court, the case kind of starts all over again in the adult court. The case will be presented to a grand jury for the grand jury to decide if they think there's enough evidence for the case to proceed to court at all. If the grand jury says yes and further prosecution is permitted, then the case will have normal court settings. The defense and the prosecution will potentially engage in plea negotiations. The case may come to a plea agreement or a trial may be had, just like any other adult case. If it goes through all that procedure in the adult court and the child who's now a defendant is found guilty, that person is now subject to the punishment range like a regular adult, which is 5 to 99 years in prison. Then there's a third option that's sort of a middle in the road or a hybrid kind of procedure. This is called determinant sentence. Determinant sentence is when the actual case and all the proceedings stay in the juvenile court, but the potential for punishment to last longer than traditional juvenile services can provide for is there. So in a murder, all the proceedings would happen in the juvenile court, whether that's plea negotiations and a plea agreement or it's a trial. Any of those things would happen in the juvenile court. However, if the person is adjudicated and found guilty of murder, then the punishment is now not probation until their 18th birthday, it's probation of up to 10 years. And instead of juvenile prison until their 19th birthday or TJJ until their 19th birthday, now they're facing confinement of up to 40 years. They can still only remain in the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the juvenile prison, until their 19th birthday. But if the person is sentenced to a term that lasts longer than their 19th birthday, the judge will bring the child back right before they turn 19 and have another hearing. The juvenile judge will then make a decision about whether the child will be released and paroled on their 19th birthday, or if they will finish the remainder of their term in the adult prison. So that's kind of what makes it a hybrid system. They start their punishment in the juvenile system, but they could potentially complete their punishment in the adult system. If a person is adjudicated of a determinant sentence, they are not currently eligible for record sealing. As you can see, the potential consequences for a juvenile who's charged with murder can be very serious and very complicated. So if you or your child are facing murder charges in Texas, give us a call at 817-203-2220 or find us at versestexas.com.